classic voice
that's unique.
Very unique. You know it's him.
I mean, he's not a virtuoso singer, but he's just so good, and he's so recognizable. So much character in his voice.
He was really what attracted me to them at first. It was really that vocals.
And Phil was the one constant throughout the entire career.
Correct.
Phil.
Yep.
He's the only one that's been on every album.
Yep. If you hear Phil Mogg's voice, you know it's a UFO.
Totally.
Even if the music doesn't sound like UFO.
Yep. It's just like Alice Cooper. You hear Alice Cooper, you know who it is.
This next one is no brainer.
It goes right along with that one.
This would be on number like 8, 7, something in that area.
Something like that.
Thin Lizzy Fighting. Yes.
U.S. cover, U.K. cover, exact same songs.
Yep.
Great. This is the beginning of the Thin Lizzy that we really...
Right, because the album that came before this was more of a crossover.
Yeah.
It took the early 3-piece Thin Lizzy sound, which was kind of folksy, kind of Irish folk.
And very bluesy,
and bluesy.
And a little prog.
But it also had some of the heavier songs on there, like Shout Out Ah and stuff like that.
Yep.
But this album was now the twin guitar attack that would become the basis for everything heavy metal.
The signature sound, really, because... and for me, I've been into it for so long, there's not a song I don't love.
That's the thing with me, too.
Rosalie is a Bob Seger cover, which was really kind of odd.
And that was from not the Silver Bullet Band, but from his...
It was from the Bob Seger original, just Bob Seger.
System, right?
It wasn't even System.
It was in between the two?
Just Bob Seger. The album was called Back in '72. It took me years to track that thing down. Finally did, and I wasn't disappointed. His is they're very similar. For Those Who Love to Live, Suicide's got a great riff in it, kind of a shuffle riff.
Kind of heavy, too.
Yep. Wild One's a bit more romantic, like Phil and Out was known for.
Mm-hmm.
Fighting My Way Back has always been kind of like a personal anthem. Whenever I was going through hard times, that was one of my songs that would kind of kick me in the ass.
King's Vengeance, great song.
Yep. Spirit Slips Away, Silver Dollar, those are deep tracks. Freedom Song. But the closer, Ballad of the Hard Man, is one of my favorites.
It's funny because it's not really a ballad either.
No, I meant...
I know, but it's called Ballad of the Hard Man.
Oh, right. Story of the Hard Man, whatever.
Yeah.
Great riff in total. It kind of goes with the cover. I'm a badass, don't mess with me. And when I first saw this cover, I didn't even know who Thin Lizzy was when I first saw it. And I'm like, man, they look like you don't want to talk back to them. They look so badass. Much more so, I think, than this cover. I love that cover.
Yeah, this is the one I saw first. I have them both too, and I don't know. That one's cool too.
This one looks a bit more posed. Like, okay, make sure you got your switchblade out and your pipe and your bat. This one, they're there, but it's not like they're like... Well, actually, they're not. The weapons aren't on this one, but they don't need to be.
Nope, they're just standing there looking badass.
Yep.
Looking for a fight.
Awesome. And it's a great album.
I remember watching a documentary, and Scott Gorham's talking about, this album came out, and they were reading the reviews, and there's Thin Lizzy's signature guitar sound, and he's like, hey, did you know we had a signature sound? That's awesome. This one might seem a little bit trite, only because this band has got kind of a resurgence going on.
Yeah, I mean, Queen...
Especially this particular album.
What can you say about this album? Yeah. It's become...
It's iconic.
It is. It totally is. It's. I remember when I was in DT Seizure for like a full year, me and my bass player, Kevin Mack, we would go to bed, we shared a room, we'd go to bed listening to this every night. We would fall asleep while it was playing. Next night we'd throw it back in, the same thing. It's a great album all the way through. It's so dynamic, it's so diverse. It's such a massive undertaking that they did. I mean, this is really what made them legends. Yep. I think.
And if you saw the recent movie, this was a huge portion of the movie.
Yes.
It was one of the highlights the high points of the storyline.
Yep. I mean, Bohemian Rhapsody was their...
What is it, Galileo?
It was their Stairway to Heaven. It's their signature song, and you can't really... They never could have outdone it. They came damn close, but I mean, this was so different from anything else that was around at the time, and so bold.
Yep.
Such a massive album, but it's almost like it's just gone beyond masterpiece. It's so... Yeah. It's just how massive it is.
It's Queen. It's 70s Queen, which is my favorite era of the band. It's got dynamics, it's got its highs, it's got its lows, it's got its... even Bohemian Rhapsody has that total headbanging riff in it.
Yep, and it's not the only song like that on there. Prophet's song is very similar. It's almost like Bohemian Rhapsody Part 2. It's got the same kind of midsection, and I would even dare say I prefer it, but it's a deeper cut. You don't hear it often. I think I heard it on the radio once, and I must have drove around the block 8 times until it finished so I could play the whole thing. I'm like, I can't believe this is on the radio.
It's funny, just last week I was driving in my car and I had a short drive from the hockey stadium to home where my grandson was playing, and I don't remember what song it was now, but a song was playing, and I was like, I'm just sitting in the car digging. My wife pulls up behind me. I didn't even know she's there. I'm just sitting in the car, and she's just standing looking at me like, what are you doing? It's like, well, couldn't turn the car off. The song's not done.
Prophet song's on. Yeah, great album. I mean, jeez.
All right, so now we're got to be close to our top 5 because I know this one was one that we debated being. It's got to be in our top 5 now, right?
Oh yeah,
I'm gonna check.
I think so. It's either the top 5 or it's right at 6.
We got 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6.
Okay.
So we're number 6.
Easily could have been higher. If it was just my top 5, it probably would have been number 3 at least, or 4. Led Zeppelin, Physical Graffiti, massive undertaking. There were a few bands in the 70s that would do double albums. Zeppelin was one of them. And I'm not talking about double live. I'm talking about double studio album.
Yep.
Which means you got a lot of songs under your belt to be able to do that.
And a lot of good songs.
Oh my God, there's classic Zeppelin on here. I mean, this is the one that produced Kashmir, which is a lot of people's absolute favorite Zeppelin. It's got some straighter ahead rockers like from the Houses of the Holy days, such as, well, that title track, Houses of the Holy, is on here. Dancing Days, Custard Pie, The Rover, all just straight ahead rockers, absolute classic Led Zeppelin. You got some really long cuts on here, like In My Time of Dying, which is this massive blues affair that's like 12 minutes long.
Yep.
And it's just an incredible song. Personal favorite, deeper cuts. 10 Years Gone is one of my absolute favorites. Down by the Seaside. Trampled Underfoot is on here, which is another kind of rocker. And In the Light, both of which were written by John Paul Jones. Massive, like, electric keyboard riffing in it that he's famous for. John Paul Jones wrote some of my absolute favorite Zeppelin tunes, and he was incredibly underrated and underappreciated, I think.
To this day.
Yeah, he's a massive musician. I saw him doing a solo tour. He did a Zepp set where he played all pedal slide guitar, and he had a drummer and a stick player, and they did a bunch of Zeppelin standards, and it was just a massive. No singing. He did all the vocal parts on the pedal slide, and just awesome and amazing. This is a great classic Zeppelin album. If it was the only one you ever heard, you wouldn't be disappointed. It's a massive undertaking. Right before kind of like the first wave of tragedy struck the band, Robert Plant's son Carrick, I think, died just after this in very strange circumstances. Robert got into a car accident where he shattered his foot. It was kind of like the beginning of the end. I think
They were huge.
They
Absolutely
were massive
band at the time.
at the time.
Yeah, this was this was kind of the hill.
Yep, this is where they kind of crested.
Yep.
And the rest was kind of downhill until John Bonham died, which was basically the end.
Yep.
For the most part.
But it's a great album.
Massive album.
Over there.
Massive.
Alright, this one was my kind of
This is another massive.
a great album, but I really
Upside
wanted this in
down.
the top 5.
Sit down again.
Yeah, I've been doing this.
Oh, okay.
I
I didn't want you to look like a goof.
I just love this album.
It's a great album.
Welcome to my nightmare.
It was the beginning of a
I think you're gonna like it.
massive era as Alice Cooper as a solo
artist.
And what a way to start, man.
Bob Ezrin, brilliant.
This is one of 3 Bob Ezrin albums that are iconic, the other 2 being Destroyer by Kiss and The Wall by Pink Floyd.
Yep.
Those would be my top 3 that he's done.
Yeah,
that
I would disagree.
think. He brought something to Alice. I mean, Bob Ezrin has a style all his own. Yeah. Alice couldn't have made this particular album without him.
Right.
I think he brings so much with him to the production table that he might as well be one of the members of the band at that point.
But there's some. Not only is it a great album front to back, this is one of those albums that I put on. I want to hear the whole thing. I don't want to just hear certain songs.
Mm-hmm.
But you can still pick out songs. You got like "Only Wind Bleeds," which was a hit,
Massive
hit for him,
massive hit.
back in the day. Which is, I mean, it actually got banned in some areas because "Only Wind Bleeds."
They thought it was talking about menstrual cycles.
but it really, And I'm sure that was the
assholes.
the whole purpose of it. It was about women's abuse. But I can see
But
why. But
even if you do it in that context, well, okay, yeah, that's true. And it's also like one of the most natural things on the planet. So why are you so offended by it?
Of course, the title track, which is awesome.
I like Some Folks a lot. That's one of my favorites. Black Widow is a classic too.
The whole B side is like is a story of Stephen, which I love it.
So it's got a concept album feel to it.
It's all about nightmares.
Yeah,
it's all about nightmares. Yeah. Department of Youth is hilarious.
Yes.
At the very end of the song, and who gave it to you? Don Osmond.
Yes.
Yeah.
We got the power.
Cold Ethel, which was the
band's second song about necrophilia.
Yep. And very popular song, but one he doesn't play anymore. Well, at least
no, there's a few that he won't play.
But I swear I heard him play that when I just saw him like a year or two ago.
Well, it's funny because he'll play "I Love the Dead," but he won't sing it. They'll play a big instrumental portion of it, but he will not sing it.
Yeah.
Another song he won't sing is "Bed of Nails," which I think I said on the '89 one. I've read in interviews where he censors himself from some of the stuff that he feels isn't appropriate anymore, based on his Christian faith.
Yep.
Basically.
Anyhow, great album, front to back.
Escape's a great one too.
Great. Yeah, I always thought Escape kind of had a Kiss-like feel to it.
Years ago. That's a personal. I love that
years
one.
ago.
That's an awesome one.
Steven!
What a great. I forget how much I love this album.
Call me? No. Speaking of massive.
Oh my god. So massive, I don't know if I can keep it in my pants.
I just don't. I mean, I know we're going to hear about this one being a hard and heavy, but it's Pink Floyd.
If you don't think that this is heavy, there's something wrong with you and you've forgotten what heavy means. Because Pink Floyd pretty much, they predated almost everybody. They were around before Sabbath, they were around before Zeppelin, they were around before Purple. All those big ones that came to be known as the roots of heavy metal, these guys were there first.
Yep.
And granted, it's not your riffing heavy metal. In places it is.
Yeah, sometimes. But
if you can't see that they, oh my god, I'm going to get angry. I love these guys. And I'm recently been on a binge that's been on going on a couple of months now that I'm rediscovering them and I'm going back and I'm revisiting stuff and digging up stuff I've never heard. This album has got so many layers to it, and it's so amazingly ambient. It's so amazingly... It's a tribute, basically, to Syd Barrett.
It's very memorable. A lot of memorable songs. Even has some hits on here.
Yeah, Wish You Were Here, the title track. Yep. Have a Cigar, which I just recently found out was sung by... not sung by Roger Waters, it's sung by... oh, God, I can't remember the guy's name. English folk guy.
Don't remember either.
Roy Harper. Which I was shocked. I had no idea. It's the first time an outside member has sang lead vocals on a Pink Floyd song. And of course the 9-part Shine On You Crazy Diamond, which is specifically about Syd Barrett. And in '75 in Abbey Road Studios, when they were recording it, hadn't seen or heard from Syd Barrett in 7 years. Lo and behold, he shows up out of nowhere. In the friggin' studio. They didn't even recognize who he was. His head was shaved, his eyebrows were shaved. He had a big pot belly. No one knew who he was, and then someone's like, "Oh my God, that's Syd," and he hung around. And they didn't really interact so much. It was more like it was just spooky as hell. Like this phantom just showed up when they're doing the song that's a tribute to him on purpose, basically.
Yeah.
And just, I don't know. The artwork is amazing. I think it's probably more hypnosis.
It is hypnosis. Yep.
Completely. It doesn't even say Pink Floyd except on the spine.
Yeah, the original one had a wrap in it.
It was like a black plastic bag wrap with the sticker.
Right.
It's just, think Pink Floyd is so deep conceptually and can't talk.
You know what I like about the cover on here? It's something very simple about the cover is that little burn.
Yep.
It takes it outside the box and makes the whole thing work. Yep. But
it's Pink Floyd, the people that they got to do their artwork were masters of the field.
All right, and these are top three.
Are we done with Pink? I wasn't done with Pink Floyd.
Are you done with Pink Floyd?
I could go on and on and on, but I won't.
You put it down, so I figured you were done. All right, next up, number 3, easily could have been my number 1 for this particular year because 76 was the year I really got into music. Yeah. One of the first albums I really got into as a full album is this one. Aerosmith,
This-
Toys in the Attic.
It's classic.
It is. It's
It
got
stands alone.
two songs on here, 3 songs really, but 2 songs that are way overplayed on the radio.
Oh yeah, Sweet Emotion.
Sweet
and Walk This
Emotion
Way.
and Walk This Way.
And Walk This Way was a huge AM radio hit for them, which kind of broke them into
the mainstream, yeah. And before this, they were almost being considered to be dropped by their label, but that's back when labels actually built artists up,
Right.
and they weren't looking for the immediate hit. They were looking to build artists up, and that's why you have these massive bands like Led Zeppelin and Aerosmith and Kiss. They weren't hit makers in the beginning. They built them up. Queen,
Exactly.
you know.
And granted, the bands had to kind of push their issue a bit, I'm sure, but this is the album that broke Aerosmith from a great band to a legendary band. I mean, really, this is where they crossed over.
Great album cover again. I love
Yep.
this album cover.
Title track's one of my favorites.
Heavy
Love that
song.
DT Seizure used to play it.
Yep, that was a Joe Perry number. He was looking for something really heavy and punky, I think is what he said.
It's a great opener.
I'm pretty sure he was. I'm pretty sure that was a song he said he was influenced by the new punk scene that was going on at the time.
It is.
Back when he was probably into a scene at all, you know. Yep, exactly.
It almost has a relentless kind
But
of
I
sound
even
to
love
it.
the deeper cuts. Uncle Salty
Uncle
has
Salty's
Apple.
great. Round and Round's an awesome one.
Round and Round's very moody song, very heavy song. Sweet Emotion is actually a very heavy song.
Especially when they play the full version.
Yes.
The long intro just makes it. It's so much better with the long intro.
Remember when we went to Vegas at one time and we were sitting, we saw that cover band playing.
Yeah, with Jimmy.
And Jimmy Crespo was in it, and they played this, and I'm like, oh man, that sounds so freaking heavy. It just sounded so good at the time.
That was cool seeing Jimmy
Crespo up there on
That
stage
was
with the
fun.
cover band, yeah.
Little tiny guy.
Nice guy. He seemed overwhelmingly like that we actually recognized who he was or cared who he was.
How could we not?
I know, but he seemed like he was like surprised that anybody cared.
Well, I mean, he played on most of Night in the Ruts, even though he wasn't really credited.
Right.
And he played on Rockin' the Hard Place, which I thought was a great Aerosmith album. That's one of my favorites.
And he toured with them for 5 years.
Yeah. Great player. And
played
definitely
on
earned his place.
the Classic Live album is
That's him too?
Yep.
Oh, cool. He earned his place in the Aerosmith. Yeah, for sure.
I agree. And he's a great player. He had a great look at the time as well.
Yep.
I always loved his Rickenbacker, not Rickenbacker, PC Rich guitars he played on stage. They were cool.
Yeah.
But anyhow, and then it ends with
You See Me Crying.
You See Me Crying, which is a ballad. And I've heard people, that's all Aerosmith does anymore, write ballads. They've always written ballads.
Dude, Adam's Apple. We didn't mention it. This is a great album all the way through.
Yeah.
Not a bad one on it. And it's even got one of those funny tunes, which is an old blues cover, big 10-inch record.
Big 10-inch record, yep. And that's another one you get to hear, you still hear on the radio these days.
Total tongue-in-cheek. But
I always thought the one part said, suck on my big 10-inch, but it wasn't.
He says,
except on my big 10-inch.
on, yeah, which, that's fine. It just added to the legend of the whole thing. What a great album.
All right,
and
so
it's the first time that the classic smoke logo, Aerosmith
logo, and I love that logo.
We don't have the wings behind it. We still got the kind of stylized wings
almost
behind
like a
it.
Van Halen wings behind it.
Yes, and it was that way on Rocks too, if I remember right.
Yep. And then
I think it was
I used to draw that on that particular logo on my notebooks in school. I mean, or my
Yeah, once you learn how to draw, you could do it with your eyes closed.
Back in the day, we'd take our books and we'd cover them with turn the grocery store
bags,
the brown bags inside out, and there were covers, and then you filled them up with your band logos.
Yep, absolutely.
Okay, this could have been number 1 for myself. Definitely, probably for Randy in this year, but
God. It's one of my favorite albums of all time. It's in my top 10 best of all time, and easily could have been number 1. Black Sabbath, Sabotage. I don't know if there's another Sabbath album that's influenced me more than this one.
it's just such a great album.
It's so heavy and it gets slagged so much.
I don't get it.
Especially the cover. The cover is what totally drew me in. Yeah, it's kind of goofy, but it's also like, what the hell?
I don't know. To me, it's just a all-out classic.
Yeah,
Every song is.
There's nothing on it I don't absolutely love. Probably the most well-known on here. It's between Symptom of the Universe and Am I Going Insane? Am I Going Insane was like a single. It appeared on compilation albums, but all the other stuff is so massively doom. It's doom and it's progressive and it's got Sabbath at the height of their sound. I mean, Ozzy's voice is like way soaring up there and it's on key, and they got one superstar. They've got a full adult choir in there with them. There's so much mood and color in this album, and it's not all blacks and grays either. It's just kind of
Yeah, like it's like a lot of the albums from the '70s. There's highs and there's lows. They
Yep.
built those valleys and those peaks into the albums, into the songs.
Yep.
It wasn't all about beat you over the head from beginning to end. This was
And-
what heavy metal was, and it was.
and they've got just
You could do
as-
acoustic parts.
Oh,
and
totally. They got just as many of those acoustic kind of real lush
interludes and
portions.
stuff. Yeah.
And that's the kind of thing that a lot of bands who try to copy the Sabbath sound, that's what they miss.
Forget it. Yep.
They totally miss all those dynamics, and that's what made Sabbath so massive. It wasn't just the massive riffs and the heavy metal. It was all of the colors that they added with the dynamics that they...
And the other influences. You had the jazz influences.
Totally.
You had the blues influences.
I mean, it's less apparent here,
Yes.
but they were...
But still, they were still there.
Yeah, and I think, I mean, this was Tony at his most experimental in the studio, and I love what he did. This one and Sabbath, Bloody Sabbath, I thought were very similar. And I wish I could hear more from those two eras specifically. Those two eras are my favorite, for sure. But,
I can't even see the cover without that riff going through my head.
No. And Hole in the Sky was an early favorite. That
Yep.
was just like, what a killer opener.
Great
What
song.
great imagery. It's still one of my favorite Sabbath tracks.
His vocals in that song, damn
Yep.
man, he's like busting
Oh, yeah.
glass.
Way up there.
I'm sure he doesn't even sing that one anymore. I'm sure he can't. Probably.
And even though Bill Ward's wearing his wife's red tights, I mean, Ozzy's got his big old Hawaiian muumuu on with his fry boots down here. It works. It's goofy as hell, but man, it just worked for me. And the cover creeped me out. I was like, what is with these guys, man? But I loved it.
All right, last one.
All
Number
right,
one.
this is a huge one. This was a life-changing album for me. Kiss
Kiss
Alive.
Alive.
We've got two different. I think I've got the Blue Casablanca one here, and that's probably the Desert label.
Probably.
But this started a lifelong love affair with this type of thing. The Kiss booklet.
The inserts, right?
I used to go to my library and stare at this thing all day long. Before I ever owned a Kiss album, I would just look at the pictures and dream about what this all meant. And I mean, back then,
It was all a mystery to us.
yeah, totally.
And it was fascinating. Even the little notes inside
Yeah.
were kind of written in their personalities.
Yes.
Obviously, it wasn't written in their handwriting.
But it totally was like, this was the beginning of them building all those characters that they had. And eventually it got really silly, but back then it was still like for real. And they were still a band, and they still were like brothers.
And it was heavy.
And it was. This album changed my life.
Yeah, I mean,
It totally did.
Parasite, wicked heavy on this
Yeah.
album. And
Yeah.
there's just not a bad song on here.
The live
Black
version of
Diamond,
She is amazing.
Great drum solo on here.
Yeah. The opening Deuce, it's the best version of the song.
Strutter, got to choose. Really, my least favorite track on here is probably Rock and Roll All Night.
Oh yeah, because they're just like, by then it was kind of like yawn.
Yeah.
But Let Me Go Rock and Roll, absolutely, arguably the best version of that tune.
And side 3 always been my favorite side as a whole, just because it's only 3 songs.
Yeah.
But it is 3 songs.
Yeah, Watching You's got a killer riff. 100,000 Years has the 10-minute Peter Criss drum solo,
Yep.
which back then, it's still one of my favorites.
He was a good drummer back then, like
He
him or
was.
not. You know what I mean? He definitely was a different dude for Kiss, or even at the time for anybody. He was the guy who came out of a different background than a lot of
Totally.
other guys.
And
did,
he was
but-
older.
Yep.
And I think the version of Black Diamond on here is just amazing.
Brilliant. Yep. I like it
D.T.
better.
Caesar used to do that one.
I like it better than the version on the studio album. But
Totally.
yeah, it was a great
No,
album.
there's nothing.
Iconic cover.
If you never had a Kiss album and you could only get one, this is the one I would say to get.
Yep. You know what I did last week? This is usually the album I play the most. When I want to hear Kiss, especially when I hear a live Kiss, I always grab this album.
Yeah.
Last week, I was at home and I was working, and I was like, I want to hear Kiss. I hadn't heard Kiss in forever. So I went in and I'm like, oh, it's the Kiss Live 2. I hadn't heard that album in so long, and oh my gosh, it sounded amazing.
But not like this one.
But I digress.
Yeah, this one is unique. And granted, it's not quite as live as we were led to believe. There was a lot of doctoring that happened here, but man, they did it. I don't care. It came out great.
And it's Eddie Kramer, if I'm not mistaken, right? Let's see here. I always thought Eddie Kramer brought the best out in this band. Engineered by Eddie
produced
Kramer.
and engineered by Eddie Kramer, yeah, who also did Rock and Roll Over.
Rock and Roll Over.
He
and
did the first 3 also, right?
No, not the first 3, but I believe I know he did the demos before the first album. Eddie Kramer did.
Okay, that's right. Okay.
And then he did his Freely solo album.
And did he also do Love Gun?
I don't think so.
No. Okay.
I could be wrong. I can't
He
remember
did.
now,
He
but-
definitely did bring out
He brought the, unlike some of the other producers that they used, he brought out the best in the Kiss guys.
Right. Bob Ezrin came in and he took them to school to bring out the best in them.
And kicked, brought other musicians in and stuff
Right.
like that. And then he wasn't above doing that for any band.
No.
That was just his style, and then other producers too. But I always liked that Bob Ezrin, or excuse me, that Eddie Kramer brought the best out in the artist. Let's get the best out of you guys. You're the band, it's your music. Let's get the best out of you, and that's what you get here. Regardless if it's got, I don't care if it has overdubs or not. I know people, it still captures the energy.
And Eddie Kramer, best known for producing Hendrix, basically.
Of course, yeah. That's it.
That's it. That's number one. Boy, we kind of
seemed like we went through.
We just raced through that, it seemed, but there weren't very many.
Yep. So
comes right down to it.
So that's it. I appreciate y'all watching. 1974 next, maybe 1990.
We're gonna see how that one goes.
We're actually gonna do a full Kiss video too. I think they make up years. So
yeah.
All right. Well, that's it. Thanks for watching once again. God bless.
See ya.
Stay strong.